I am the king! I will punish you.
Any man who must say, I am the king, is no true king.
This scene is more than just a political debriefing. It is a profound dissection of power, legacy, and the deep psychological schisms within House Lannister. We will see Tywin Lannister, the ultimate pragmatist, confront two starkly different forms of power: the chaotic, sadistic impulses of his grandson, King Joffrey, and the calculating, strategic mind of his despised son, Tyrion. To understand the weight of this conversation, we must first appreciate the bloody news that sets it in motion. As always, let's establish the context. The War of the Five Kings is, for all intents and purposes, over. The small council has just received a cryptic message from Walder Frey, its seemingly innocuous words a thin veil for a horrifying truth. The Red Wedding was a success. Robb Stark, the young wolf who had never lost a battle, has been slaughtered at a wedding feast alongside his mother, Catelyn Stark. The Northern Army has been decapitated, its leadership annihilated in an act of treachery that violates one of the most sacred laws of gods and men. This is a moment of absolute stunning victory for the Lannisters. It has been achieved not on the battlefield, but through a brutal, calculated betrayal that has horrified the realm, but decisively secured their power. The mood in the chamber should be one of triumph. But as we are about to see, victory means very different things to the men who now rule the Seven Kingdoms. The scene opens with Tyrion's arrival. He finds his nephew, King Joffrey, pacing the room, manic with energy, excited and grinning. This is not the sober expression of a victorious monarch, but the undisguised glee of a child who has just received a new, cruel toy. After Tyrion deciphers the coded message, Joffrey wastes no time in revealing the bloody truth with relish.
Robb Stark is dead. And his bitch mother.
His reaction is immediate and visceral. There is no thought of the political ramifications, no consideration for the consolidation of power. His mind goes directly to sadism. His first command is not a strategic one aimed at pacifying the North, but an act of petty, personal torment directed at his captive former fiancée.
Write back to Lord Frey, thank him for his service, and command him to send Robb Stark's head. I'm going to serve it to Sansa at my wedding feast.
This is Joffrey in his purest form, a ruler driven entirely by sadistic impulses and emotional volatility. He embodies the chaotic fool, a leader whose actions are not guided by reason or political necessity, but by the whim of his own cruel desires. Cersei and Varys, ever the political operators, try to pass this off as a dark joke, a moment of royal hyperbole. But Joffrey, bristling at the suggestion that he doesn't mean what he says, doubles down. This is where Tyrion, despite the immense personal danger, feels compelled to intervene. He attempts to establish a boundary to protect the last shred of decency in the court.
I'm going to have it served to Sansa at my wedding feast.
No. She is no longer yours to torment.
This act of moral courage is a direct challenge to Joffrey's authority, and the boy king's deep-seated insecurity immediately erupts. He doesn't respond with a reasoned argument, but with a childish tantrum, a raw proclamation of his own power.
Everyone is mine to torment. You do well to remember that, you little monster.
Tyrion, a master of verbal sparring, refuses to be cowed. He takes Joffrey's insult, monster, delivering a veiled threat that speaks to the profound instability of the crown itself.
Oh, I'm a monster. Perhaps you should speak to me more softly then. Monsters are dangerous, and just now kings are dying like flies.
The room falls silent. Tyrion has just invoked the recent violent deaths of Renly Baratheon and Robb Stark, reminding everyone in the room, especially Joffrey, of his own mortality. It's a breathtakingly bold move. Joffrey, momentarily stunned by this intellectual checkmate, can only resort to the threat of brute force.
I could have your tongue out for saying that.
But it is too late. The challenge has been made, and the true power in the room is about to assert itself. Throughout this entire exchange, Tywin Lannister has remained silent, watching. His face is a mask of cold contempt. Now, as Joffrey continues his tantrum, screaming,
I am the king! I will punish you.
Any man who must say, I am the king, is no true king.
With this single devastating sentence, Tywin completely invalidates Joffrey's entire understanding of power. He teaches him that true authority is not proclaimed, it is demonstrated, it is inherent, recognized by others, and does not need to be announced. This line is the ultimate dismissal of Joffrey's chaotic, insecure brand of rule. Tywin follows this by terminating the discussion.
The king is tired. See him to his chambers.
Come along.
I'm not tired.
Grand Maester, perhaps some essence of nightshade to help him sleep.
This is not an act of grandfatherly concern. It is the act of a master strategist removing a broken, unpredictable tool from the table. Joffrey is a chaotic element to be sedated and controlled, not a king to be consulted. The time for emotional indulgence is over. The serious, strategic work of securing the dynasty must now begin. As the council members, including a fuming Cersei and a defeated Joffrey, begin to file out of the room, Tywin delivers a quiet but immensely significant command. He looks at his youngest son, the one he has spent a lifetime despising, and says,
Not you.
With these two words, the real meeting begins. This is a deliberate, calculated action that reveals the central contradiction of Tywin Lannister's character. In this moment, his logical, strategic mind is activated and forcibly overrides his primal, emotional prejudice. Tywin's default, automatic System 1 response to Tyrion is one of visceral, emotional rejection. This is a hatred rooted in the profound trauma of his beloved wife Joanna dying during Tyrion's birth. This instinctive contempt is ever present, coloring his every interaction with his son. He sees Tyrion not as an individual, but as a walking embodiment of his greatest loss, a stunted fool and a lecherous little stump. However, with the war won and the complex, high-stakes task of consolidating power now at hand, Tywin's disciplined System 2 recognizes that Tyrion is a necessary strategic asset. He dismisses Joffrey, the supposed king, because he understands that armies, not crowns, confer true power, and armies require strategy, not tantrums. By commanding Tyrion to stay, Tywin is making a cold, rational calculation. He is acknowledging that his despised son is the only one in the room with the strategic mind and cunning necessary for the next phase of the great game. This is the tyrant's contradiction in action. His logical mind is forced to utilize the very son his heart reflexively loathes. The private conversation that follows is a fascinating dance of intellectual acknowledgement and profound personal denial. Tyrion, with his characteristic wit, opens with a sardonic observation.
You just sent the most powerful man in Westeros to bed without his supper.
You're a fool if you believe he's the most powerful man in Westeros.
A treasonous statement. Joffrey is king.
You really think a crown gives you power?
Tywin immediately corrects him, reinforcing the lesson he had just taught Joffrey. The discussion then turns to the Red Wedding.
Do you disapprove?
I'm all for cheating. This is war. But to slaughter them at a wedding...
Explain to me why it is more noble to kill 10,000 men in battle than a dozen at dinner.
This question is a perfect distillation of Machiavelli's argument for cruelty wisely used. In The Prince, Machiavelli posits that a ruler's seemingly cruel but decisive actions can ultimately be more compassionate than allowing indecisiveness to lead to prolonged conflict, which would result in far more death and suffering. By posing this challenge to Tyrion, Tywin is acknowledging his son's sharp intellect. He is treating him as a strategic peer, a mind capable of understanding the grim, effective reality of power politics, where outcomes, not methods, are what truly matter. Having established the brutal logic of his victory, Tywin outlines the next phase of his grand strategy.
All the Stark men are dead. Winterfell is a ruin. Roose Bolton will be named Warden of the North, until your son by Sansa comes of age.
The duty to bed Sansa and produce an heir is once again placed squarely on Tyrion's shoulders. This is the point where Tyrion's simmering moral outrage boils over.
Do you think she'll open her legs for me? After I tell her how we murdered her mother and brother?
One way or another, you will get that girl pregnant.
Not rape her.
The horror of the command, coming directly after the news of the atrocity, pushes Tyrion to his breaking point. For a person whose entire identity has been shaped by his father's conditional acceptance and constant commands, this refusal is a vital, self-affirming act. It is an attempt to counter the pervasive helplessness that has defined his life, a product of the chronic interpersonal trauma inflicted by his father. He is establishing a moral boundary that Tywin's tyrannical authority cannot cross. Tywin, of course, is unmoved by this appeal to morality. He dismisses it as a selfish whim and counters with his own absolute philosophy on duty.
The house that puts family first will always defeat the house that puts the whims and wishes of its sons and daughters first. A good man does everything in his power to better his family's position, regardless of his own selfish desires.
The scene culminates in Tyrion's final, desperate plea for validation. After a lifetime of being treated with contempt, he challenges his father to name a single selfless act he has ever performed for the family that was not also in his own self-interest.
It's a very good lesson. Only it's easy for you to preach utter devotion to family when you're making all the decisions.
Easy for me, is it?
When have you ever done something that wasn't in your interest, but solely for the benefit of the family?
It is a son's last-ditch attempt to seek some sign of attunement, some acknowledgement of a shared purpose beyond cold, hard ambition. Tywin's response is not an answer, but a weapon. He uses the opportunity to inflict the deepest and most personal wound imaginable. He doesn't just deny Tyrion validation, he weaponizes his very existence.
The day that you were born, I wanted to carry you into the sea and let the waves wash you away. Instead, I let you live. And I brought you up as my son. Because you're a Lannister.
This is the ultimate denial of a father's blessing. In this moment, Tywin fully embodies the shadow archetype of the king, the tyrant. The tyrant is defined by his fear and envy of the strength and vitality in his own children, and he seeks to destroy it. Tywin confirms that Tyrion's survival was not an act of love or even acceptance, but a calculated decision based on duty to the family name. Tyrion's existence is framed as a burden Tywin chose to bear, a constant reminder of his greatest loss. This chronic emotional invalidation is the source of Tyrion's developmental trauma, creating a deeply imprinted sense of worthlessness. Tywin acknowledges his value as a Lannister asset, but denies him any value as a son, a man, or a human being. Tywin Lannister's political success was built on the foundation of his disciplined, logical mind. His downfall, however, was sealed by his inability to overcome his primal, prejudiced hatred for his son. This scene is the perfect illustration of that fatal contradiction. He leverages Tyrion's competence to win his wars and secure his dynasty, but simultaneously uses the tyrant's shadow to humiliate and degrade him personally. He treated his most capable son not as an heir to be affirmed, but as a tool to be exploited. By consistently denying Tyrion the king's blessing and any true sense of familial belonging, Tywin ensured that this despised but brilliant son would eventually be driven to an act of ultimate rebellion. Tywin's unwavering projection of contempt, his inability to see past his own prejudice, became his fatal blind spot. It blinded him to the growing rage and desperation in his son, a rage that would culminate in a crossbow bolt in the privy. In the end, the master strategist was undone not by a rival army, but by the emotional consequences of his own tyranny. He won the war, but in this room, in this conversation, he sealed